Do I have to do neurofeedback forever? I'm Dr. Trish Leigh. Let me answer that question for you. No, you don't have to do neurofeedback forever. At least you shouldn't if you're working with a qualified provider who knows what he or she is doing. Let me tell you why. The whole point or the whole way that neurofeedback works is to break a negative feedback loop and to reestablish a positive feedback loop in its place. Let me tell you how it works. So if you are struggling with anxiety or ADHD, addictions, any other thing in your life that comes from your brain, which I know many of you may not know what all those things are, and I'm happy to answer any questions. If you want to put some comments below or email me at info@drtrishleigh.com, I will always get back to you. Okay, but I digress. So back to what's happening. If you have a brain-based condition like a cognitive or a psychological issue or even a physical issue that's coming from your brain, what happens is as you use that brain pattern, it is hardwiring itself in. It's locking itself in more every time you use it. That's what neuroplasticity is. So you've probably heard me say before that neuroplasticity can be our best friend if we're doing all the right stuff and our worst enemy if we're doing all the wrong stuff. Using the brain pattern that's causing your problems is doing all the wrong stuff. So if you have ADHD and you go to school and you struggle with distraction and focus and you're basically just using your ADHD pattern all day long, you are hardwiring it in. Same thing with anxiety. If you're feeling anxious and then you go into a social situation and you're all anxious and you're not succeeding at it because you're feeling stressed out and a lot of anxiety, you're using the anxiety brain pattern. You're hardwiring it in. That is a negative feedback loop. So what happens is you use the brain pattern that's causing your problems, you get more and worse negative behaviors, which makes you feel bad and perform poorly, which hardwires in that original brain pattern for ADHD, anxiety, addictions, etc. And then that is a downward spiral. So how do you break that? How do you change that? For me, the easiest way to help people is to go into their brain performance pattern by peeking at it and seeing what's going on in there, then gently teaching the brain not to use that pattern anymore. And then it breaks that negative feedback loop. And then it establishes a positive feedback loop. And let me tell you how it works. So now we improve the ADHD pattern so you're better able to focus, you're less distracted, you can be more productive for longer. Now you go to work or you go to school and you use that better pattern. Your teacher notices and she praises you. At work, you get your project done faster, you hand it into your boss and he's psyched because not only is it early, it's good. You go home, you tell your wife, totally awesome, I just got my project in early. She's all psyched and you have a nice dinner together, creating a positive feedback loop. Now what that does is that's hardwiring in the better brain pattern. That's how long-term change happens from a neurofeedback program. So that when we create the positive feedback loop, you are no longer downward spiraling into worse behaviors and a worse brain pattern, which by the way, a worse brain pattern creates even worse brain patterns like mental health issues, depression, on and on. So when we create a positive feedback loop of upward change, your behaviors get better, you feel and perform better, your brain pattern gets better, and eventually you will no longer need neurofeedback to keep the positive feedback loop going because basically we've established the positive feedback in your brain and your body and your mind. So we've taken what neurofeedback does in your sessions and we've instilled it in your life. And as long as we have the positive feedback loop established and getting stronger, you will no longer need neurofeedback. Now, the coolest thing is that's all measurable. I can see that in your brain performance pattern. So the way that I can see that is if you come in and you have a brain map performed, or honestly, in today's COVID-19 day and age, we have perfected our online brain map platform. And when I say we, it's me and my team that is behind me working on the app that we use. So I didn't do it at all. That team did it. but I have perfected how we're using it. And now that at-home brain map is ready to roll, and I am its biggest fan. It's our Leigh Brain Spine Brain Shift program. Now we can do your brain map. We assist you in taking your brain map. You get the results immediately in your app, and then you and I discuss the findings, which you can see it, but you can't exactly understand it. I move you through it, and you can totally understand what's happening in your brain. You can see where your strengths are. Most people have strengths, and they're excited to see that. You can also see where the weaknesses in your patterns are and what can be done about it. And I think that's the most beautiful thing. When you see there's areas of need, then you know, and I know exactly what your brain needs to fill those gaps so you can start feeling and performing better and create the upward spiral. So once we see what your brain needs, I know exactly how to set the protocols. And again, we can do all of that from home, or you can still come into the office because we're deemed essential and we've been open the whole time. But you can use your neurofeedback system to teach your brain to make more of perfect processing speed in the middle and less in the extremes that are causing your problems. And over time, we will see that that brain performance pattern has changed and improved. And we'll also see that if we see it for 1 month and it's in the optimal pattern, 2 months later, it's still in the optimal pattern and you're feeling great, then it's likely we've established that positive feedback loop and regression will not happen. But I will tell you, in my program, I peek at your brain quarterly. Usually I peek at it monthly, and then once we're ready and we're pretty sure, you and I, we're sure that that positive feedback loop has been established, then I peek at it quarterly, I show it to you, we look at all the data together, and we know that this is stuck there. And then we know you don't need to use neurofeedback anymore. But I'll tell you, I give you tools to use in the end because I think neurological regulation is a lifelong adventure, not with the frequency and consistency that you need to do in home neurofeedback or neurofeedback in the office, but to a certain degree to keep you there because life as a human being can be challenging. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. You should not have to do neurofeedback forever, and you should be able to totally see where you are in that journey using the data with your provider.